So hello everyone and welcome to the second Water Book Club Live. Water Book Club is designed to be a book club that's centred around water narratives in a time of drought and doubt with nature. And today I've got the lovely Hannah Pierce, sorry I went to say Price then. Hannah Pierce, who's talking to us about her book, All Boats Are Sinking. So do you want to introduce yourself a little bit, Hannah?
Yeah, absolutely. I was just saying before we went live how much of a joy this is to have had this challenge of looking at some questions in advance, but to talk about such a wholesome and wonderful thing as water. My name is Hannah Pierce, as Jen has just said. I trained originally as an actor before writing, producing, and performing in theatre in the UK and abroad. I then kind of segued very naturally into hospitality and ended up running a pub for quite a while, and then moved into sort of live arts in venue management and as a creative programmer for live arts, but always kind of merging the arts and hospitality was kind of my thing. And then obviously when lockdown happened, my job became pointless, and so I was made redundant. I was living on a canal boat at the time in London, and I was my mum made a slightly off the cuff comment, and said, "Oh, you should take your boat out of London and do something, go and see your brother in West Yorkshire." And I was like, "That's actually quite a fun idea." And I thought it would take me 4 weeks. This is in the book, and it ended up taking me 6 months, and that gave me a lot of time and space to go on some real adventures. And I wrote about it and my subsequent years and some other times on the boat in my book All Boats Are Sinking, which was published in 2024.
It's amazing, thank you for that. And you kind of covered the what the book is as well there perfectly.
I should say, just for full transparency, I have transitioned onto land. So
yes, you're
a
landlubber now.
Yeah, I now live in South London.
With as many baths as you want, which must be a beautiful life.
Different.
In case anyone doesn't know, that's something that boaters covet, and some people have very nice baths on their boats though, which I really covet myself. So I thought we'd start off with a bit basically about your book title, Inspiration. So as a boater myself, I had to smile at this moment because there's always definite wisdom to be had on a boatyard. And it seems to have also translated as a large allegory for your personal journey as well. So just for context, in the book, Hannah had some unfortunate issues where she's had to go into a boatyard and have her boat lifted out of the water temporarily for months. She did quite well, I think. Some mishaps on there. And Paul on the yard turns to you and he says, "All boats are sinking, Hannah, just at different rates." So can you tell me why that stuck with you, why you chose it as your title?
Yeah. It was a crazy winter. Do you remember Beast of the East?
I do remember that.
It was that year. It was extreme, first winter on the boat. So it was early on in my boating life that I came across Paul the welder, as he's known. And it was what he said completely shocked me. Like, here's this guy fixing my boat, and he says this kind of really prophetic thing about the futility of aiming for perfection, I felt. And as a boater, I mean, you'll know this, Jen, it's like you're always worried about your boat sinking, right? It's just like you wake up in the middle of the night, is it sinking? And here's this boat expert, someone who I'm paying to fix my boat, and he's saying, yeah, of course it will sink. And it kind of took the pressure off. It was like, oh, you're sort of saying out loud my biggest fear, and it reduced it for me, right? And it was a really warm moment, and it was someone offering me reassurance in what was actually, when I look back at it, an extremely difficult time. And so when I was writing the book and looking back at that, I thought it just summed up the whole boating experience. There was this guy being incredibly warm and generous towards me. And, the boat, me and my journey just couldn't be perfect. It wouldn't be perfect. And no boats are perfect. And they will be patched up, and we'll try our hardest to keep them afloat. And And I think in life we, sorry to get a bit philosophical, but we do fight for perfection and this idea of what our lives should be like. And so when you have that realization, oh, it's, nothing's perfect, it was quite freeing. So I thought, yeah. And actually it's got quite a negative connotation, all boats are sinking, but I hope when you read the book you kind of go, oh, okay, I get it now.
Yeah, I think it does work philosophically as well, though. Definitely that kind of the grip of perfection. And I think I completely relate to it. One of the biggest things I had when I had my boat for the first time was how it looked from the outside and then the inside, and trying to please this kind of invisible person that was judging the boat and was it going to sink. And then after a while you just think nobody really cares. It's only you that matters.
And there's always something wrong with it.
Exactly. And that's just like life, right? You do that with your own goals.
Exactly. Yeah.
Exactly. So there's a beautiful asynchronicity to how you weave your life on RG, which is the name of your boat, with what came before in the storyline, which is your life. And then it slowly unfurls as you flow from place to place, which beautifully reflects your emotional changes of singledom, finding love, and the reality of strength and independence. I think, especially in the last part of your book, I think there's a bit of girl power element going on to it. I love that your friend got you that shirt. What does it say? Would you ask a man that?
Would you say that if I was a man? Yeah, I've still got it. I found it the other day. It's a little tight, but it's still there.
You should trademark it. But was this an intentional motif when you were writing it, this kind of back and forth and reflection?
Well, it's very kind of you to notice that. And I think to an extent it probably was conscious, yeah. But I was writing at least the second half of the book when I was actually kind of going through this stuff. It was in live, real time. So it was hard to be reflective and analytical and kind of make those connections, which I guess as part of the process of writing it, maybe I actually heard a quote from Elizabeth Day in a podcast recently, and she said, "Write the scar, not the wound." And I think I might have actually written the wound when I was writing because I was just so in it. So I think a lot of that kind of connection came from the editing stage, which I had some distance from. I think the structure of the book, COVID, I mean, and that personal upheaval that happened was actually kind of a real gift. It gave me a real chance of a reset. And that's great for the structure of the book. It gave me a clear moment of transition, and the book fits quite nicely into like this 5-act structure. And at that point, which is in your climax of third act, it's like, right, go on your adventure. Yeah. And I think when I left London on the boat, I did frame it as an adventure, but looking back on it, if I'm honest, I was kind of running away. Yeah. Yeah, and I think I was shedding my past, right? And going through that personal transition, and the adventure was a surprise, and the resilience I built up through all the mishaps and challenges were totally accidental. And it's corny to say it, but that period of my life definitely formed me into someone new. So this is, everything all kind of merged together. And I wanted to intersperse some stories that I felt would give some context about my personal journey. So some of the things from earlier on in my life, but I don't go back too far. No one wants to hear about my childhood.
I think it's done really well. Yeah, you definitely give the positioning, and like you say, I think you do say, to be fair, in the book you have some reflection, but you can tell it's in real time. Now you're saying you wrote it in real time, it makes sense, because I think you put it kind of cheekily in brackets, and maybe to run away. Yeah. And actually there's a great sense of humour that you do with that throughout the entire book. It just leaps off the page. And I love how you've highlighted the playfulness, basically, of the gritty side of being a boater, which I think can be quite hard to do, because you could get really depressing with it in one way, or very technical. So it could get a bit boring, but it doesn't. It's nice and fun.
Thank you.
And which boating is, obviously. And so just kind of like your informal use of the lists and the map maps, and it acts like a guidebook, almost how to live your life. I quite like that. You had like these recipes in there, and it made me so hungry. Your book did, by the way. I was constantly like, I wish that I'd met this woman, because I think you're in Stoke around the same year that I got my boat, and we were in Norfolk. And I was like, if I'd just been down there, I could have got some free cakes off this woman. I could like smell them coming off the page.
That's funny.
But yeah, what made you make those choices in your writing? Basically, how did you go about putting that humour in?
I mean, yeah, I think it's kind of, for starters, how the book came to be is that, you'll know this, Jen, that people who don't live on boats have this enormous curiosity about it, and actually kind of ask really personal questions. So like, it's not, they don't hold back. The amount of times I was asked really directly, like, how much was your boat? And I'm like, would you do that if it was on land? Like, if it was a house, would you go up to someone and say in their garden, how much is your house? And where does your post go? What do you do with your toilet? These things that are quite personal. And so when I started writing it, it was really just to fulfill that curiosity. It was like, oh, people are interested in this, so I'll write about it. So it was kind of a guidebook to begin with. It was more like, this is how you do things, and a bit more nuts and bolts. And then obviously when you talk about toilets and getting home and it's cold, or you're moving and you get jammed in a lock and all these things, suddenly it becomes more about your life and your survival and your funny, ridiculous stories about coming home drunk and leaving your key in the door and then getting burgled. Like that's the safety element of boating. So
that was
all these things.
Me a lot, that bit.
Yeah, it was horrible. So I weaved it in kind of naturally, I think. And look, I'm not a nuts and boltsy person. Having said that, I don't know anything really about like engineering, or I'm not very detail orientated. So it was always going to be kind of experiences rather than the nuts and bolts. And I did want to stay clear of it being a manual. And actually I didn't particularly want to write it for the boating community. Having said that, it's absolutely wonderful that boaters read it and relate to it. And I think if I were a boater and I hadn't read this book, I'd like to think I would like to read it. But the structure of it, the maps, the lists, and what you mentioned there is probably just how my brain works. A year after the book was published, I was diagnosed with ADHD, and my friend, who's actually in the book, my ex-boyfriend, whose wedding I go to in the book, he read it and then said, like, yeah, like the clues are in it, babe. And I was like, really? He was like, the lists, the short choppy chapters, the visual prompts. So that's why it's like this kind of map, I guess, and lots of imagery.
That's so interesting. So it's kind of it's written in a neurodiverse way then, because I have ADHD as well.
Yeah.
Actually, yeah, the short chapters were great. Like,
helpful, isn't it?
I really liked it because it was, I could see the end of it, of the chapter, and I don't even care about stuff like that, but I still do that when I read. Sometimes I go, I start a chapter and I go, okay, it's this, and I put my finger there.
Oh my God,
it's a strange thing. Like, I'll completely forget that point and go past it. But it's having that kind of the maps and stuff definitely helped. I'd be flicking back and forth, so that's hadn't actually thought about that. So you've written for kind of for people to understand how a neurodiverse mind works, actually, maybe without even realizing
it, and it wasn't even on my radar, ADHD, actually, when I wrote this. Emma, I'm just making sure I'm saying her name and not a fake name I created. It is Emma in the end third of the book, who helps me with lots of. She said to me one day when we were cruising, she went, do you think it might be ADHD? And it was the first time I thought about it. I didn't write with that in mind at all. But it's super interesting now looking back at it, and lots of my choices that I made as well. But anyway, we could do a whole other chat on ADHD.
Yeah, I think there could be a whole story on, I think, boaters that find out that they've got ADHD.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Eye roll.
People buying their first boat, I think, is definitely a thing in the boating community rather
Oh
than
my
shopping
God, the
around.
impulsivity. Oh my
Yeah.
God, I hadn't even thought of that. It's
I was quite
embarrassing.
satisfied that you said that you did that because I was like, justified.
I know.
All my friends
Terrible.
have done that. It's a crazy thing, really.
It is totally crazy. Oh, that's
Um,
funny.
so also with that, the book is quite a bare-all memoir. So you've got kind of steamy Titanic style handprint scenes on the window, and then to your 24-hour sewage spill, which I was absolutely rolling around laughing about, which I know I shouldn't have been because it would have been very painful at the time. But you know, I've been there. One of the people have gone through it on their boats. But what advice would you have to give to writers about how to put across honesty when representing personal humanity in a memoir?
Yeah, I think it's a really interesting subject, and I'm really glad you asked it actually, because it got me thinking about it. Um, I think going back to the ADHD, I'm definitely an oversharer. I'm definitely impulsive. I do blurt things out. Um, but I also care, and maybe this is my brain as well, but I do care a lot about authenticity and, truthfulness. And I didn't write it in the first instance to be published. I just wrote it for fun. I guess as I got into it, I thought, oh, maybe this could be a thing. And so the story came first for sure, and I just didn't filter. But when it came to getting the book deal, I was like, oh, okay. And I did agonize about it, to be honest. And there was one offer I had from a top and quite commercial literary agency who wanted it, and they were really lovely and wanted to go quite commercial with it, or so they said. But they wanted to fictionalize it, and I just like really said, it was such an instinct, but I just was like, no, I really want this to be my truth, and I didn't want to, because I guess as far as they were concerned, on the one hand, an unknown author writing memoir is quite a tricky genre to sell, but that they probably thought we could lean into lots more of the story, make it more dramatic and more, more things happen. And but I just felt really strongly that I wanted to be authentic with it. And so when I was grappling with this, I was opening up to my agent and my editor and my therapist and my friends, and they were all looking at me quite blankly, sort of going, well, dude, this is your problem. Like, you've got to make this decision. No one's forcing you either way. And a few people did say, well, don't publish it then if you're feeling anxious about it. This is earlier drafts, right? So that some things have gone in since, some things have been taken out. And I remember calling Bryony Kimmings, who's a performance artist. I don't know if you've heard of her. She's absolutely incredible. But she works a lot in autobiographical work. She's got a show, I think it's on tour at the moment, called Bogwitch, which is about the bringing up a child against the backdrop of like the environment crisis. She's absolutely
I think
amazing.
I have heard of her actually. Sorry, yeah.
Yeah, she's badass. But yeah, so I gave her a call and was like, help me. What do you think about this sharing of autobiographical work? And she was like, look, you just shouldn't feel unsafe. That's the thing that you need to decide. And she said, like, do hold things back if it makes you feel like you have more power or control over this. Which I did a little, believe it or not. And then when it came to the editing stage, I was, fortunate to have the legal read. So I had a lawyer come in and do all you can't say that, you're going to get permission on that, change this. And that was important for that safety element as well. And then finally, and probably as the icing on the cake, I shared it to my now husband, who, he didn't know me over those years. And so for me to give it to him was a big deal. And for him to go away and read it, and he came back and he went outside. He doesn't smoke, but he went outside and had a moment and a cigarette. And he came in and he just said, like, that was a lot. But he was like really encouraging, and he just said, do it. It's great. Just do it. So that was great because I trusted his care for me. So yeah. that was my journey. But it's hard. It wasn't easy.
Yeah, I love that you just said you trusted your care for him. That's so nice to have a reader. Maybe that's the good you say anchoring point after you've done the legal stuff. To get someone who
Yeah, because
that's the opinion that you're going to be like, okay,
yeah,
if they turn around.
exactly. Yeah, and I'm not going to show it to my mum and dad first. They've got too many. And but also like the publishers, they want to sell the best book, you know, and they are lovely. You know, I had the most amazing editing team, but they're not there to look after you.
So have your mum and dad read it then?
Yeah, totally covered. My dad, I mean, he, to your point about the short chapters, he read it in a day. I was actually quite offended. You mean it didn't take longer? But they were really kind about it.
I think you think it's quite feral, but I think it's done in a way that isn't like, you know, it's not excessive or like there's not gory details. It's it reads like a rom-com a little bit,
Cool.
which I really liked.
Nice.
To be honest, that was when you said it's not necessarily for boaters. I was thinking I think there's a bit of nostalgia about the way that you write your book. If you're a boater, you can read it and say, I remember doing these little things, and then you've also got you in there though, which is the actual story. So it's kind of, you know, how many times do you get to read about a boat? How many times do you
I do all the time.
get to read a book that the main character is a boater, which you know, might be a bit egotistical, but that isn't really a setting for other people, really. You know, you've made boaters real, really. So that's really
I love that.
nice. Yeah, it was good. I can see why maybe they thought because your writing was so good, like it reads almost like fiction. But I have to say there was enough drama. I think, you know, your boat getting stuck was like I was like biting my nails off reading.
Really? God, yeah, it was pretty dark.
That was bravery with the angle grinder situation. But yeah, I won't give away too much stuff for those who haven't read it yet, but it's worth it. But I've took note of it. I was like, right, well, if that ever happens.
Yeah. Have you done that canal?
I haven't done that one yet. No, we kind of went the opposite way to how you went. So we've been kind of going around all the in Lancashire, Liverpool, and down that side. But yeah, in that we would have converged in the middle at one point. My partner will be very happy that you like oatcakes because he's from Stoke. So yeah.
Oh, beautiful. I miss them.
Yeah, there should be a national dish, I think.
Yeah.
Okay, so in the book as well, so just getting back to the questions. In the book as well, you represent what it's like to be a nomad, which I think is quite an important motif, especially for a lot of boating life on water. Do you find that your sense of home has changed thanks to your time living adrift on water now?
Yeah, totally. Yeah, I feel like I need to think more about this question. It feels too big because what is home? And, you know, I think it encapsulates who you are at that point in your life as well. You know? I was very much living in a home on my own on that tiny little thing, and now I live in a house. Well, it's not a house; it's a flat, but with two other people, and there's a family. You know, it is a big question, but I think, and in simplistic terms, boat life is very. I've written down Hague. You know, the Danish word.
Yeah,
it's extremely like, I don't know, that, and I do definitely try to recreate that now, despite my bland background currently. And I've become very house proud, I think, you know, as a result of my experience on the boat. Everything has a place, you know. And nature is definitely incredibly important to me in a way that it wasn't before. And while I live in London, we're like right by common land, and it's vast and very cool. And my daughter's there every single day, and that's really, really important to me. But also, like, this is definitely my home for now, this flat. But my experience has definitely shown me that there's way more out there in the UK, and we're not wedded to London, and we will continue to explore, and however that looks like. And I say we because we are a family now. I have to make those decisions as a three.
Yeah, I think it's interesting, especially with nature. I like that you are obviously in the book you kind of open up out of London, and it gets more and more nature. But I think just before then in lockdown, I noticed that you were noticing was it the cooties?
Yeah,
And I think that's one of the big things about living on water, I think, is that you just start noticing animals that you didn't know existed every day, really.
100%. Yeah,
Yeah.
that's it. You're in such close proximity to them. In London, it was all, for me, it was, like, as you said, it was all about the birds. Just like first thing in the morning, this absolute cacophony of, right by your head, the swans, the coots, the moorheads, the cormorants, the everything. And yeah, just beautiful. So yeah, I really did notice that. And I continue to notice birds in a way that I definitely didn't before.
And of course, it's your real life, and water just happened to be a part of your story. But there feels like there is like an undercurrent of symbolism in its presence within it. So the idea of personal growth and cleansing, which I think is it's tied to water narratives, for memoir sort of thing, mythology, and the juxtaposition of like danger being at the same time with newfound safety, kind of within yourself. And like you said, somebody broke into your boat when you were actually asleep, which is like my thing that I constantly, like my little fear as a boater at the moment. Would you say that was, you intentionally highlighted that when you were writing it, or it was just kind of a happy coincidence, maybe from being on the water and writing as you were there?
Yeah, I think it's a happy coincidence. But like you said, the sort of proximity that you are and the realities and the power of the waterways is very tangible when you live on it, isn't it? It's like it's your everyday life. So those dangers that you talked about, and the locks and the boats untying in the storm, or definitely the changing seasons was a big one for me, and how acutely you feel every step of
Yeah.
the annual calendar of weather. Um, you experience it so acutely, and all, like the nature and the mechanics and all of these crossover with human behavior. So it was impossible not to let one inform the other. But no, it wasn't intentional, but I'm delighted it's there.
And so how has your relationship with water changed then? Or how did it change from before buying the boat, getting the boat, and then now being back on land?
Mm. I mean, I think the big one for me is about the UK waterway system as a whole, because, prior to living on the boat, I was London centric. And prior to that, lived in the East Coast in Ipswich. And, my relation to the UK was you get the train to Liverpool to see friends, or you go to Manchester, or you go to Birmingham, or you stay in the countryside, or you sort of plonk yourself somewhere. And the being on the boat and being able to see the UK through like very real time, basically walking pace, and seeing that variety of landscape and the waterways and the communities from the aspect of the waterways was a complete shock to me. And I was really humbled by it and quite kind of like embarrassed about my lack of knowledge as well. Um, and that's really stuck with me. And yes, I live on land now, but we've just bought a camper van, so we're going to sort of continue that
Nice.
idea of exploring the UK, because it's bloody incredible, all the corners of it. And that's definitely stuck with me. Waterways or no waterways, that will be the plan.
Yeah, and it's funny that you say that walking pace. They call it boat time, obviously,
That's
don't
it.
they? Yeah, or canal time.
Yeah.
And kind of that the web of water has basically connected you to the rest of the UK, which is our first episode. That we had an author called Amy Jane Beer. She spoke a little bit about prehistoric Britain, which is
Oh,
basically saying that
brilliant.
water was the thing that connected us to our whole country and the world. So you had kind of had your own mini prehistoric kind of symmetrical thing going on there to what she was saying, because she has a scientist and also a lot about history. So maybe you kind of picked up on that innate thing in Britain, that you've gone up the waterways and connected to other communities.
Yeah, exactly. And I mean, I shouldn't assume, but I don't reckon, unless you're really actively seeking it out, that you do appreciate that that's there, because it sits low in the land as well, right? It's at the lowest
Yeah.
point, so it's just this kind of little secret. Calling it a web is gorgeous.
Yeah.
Yeah, so that's what's been the biggest change for me, I think.
And I should ask as well. I meant to ask this first, but this question I forgot. Sorry, that's a bit of my ADHD. Which is, what does water mean to you? Because obviously we are the Water Book Club.
I love that question. I think it's great, and I was pondering it as I was giving my daughter a bath last night, and she and all babies, I think, they seem to almost have an obsession with water. It's like as soon as you bring water out, everything stops, and it's like the way it looks or the sound of it, and just like splashing in puddles and bubbles, and drinking for my daughter is like this huge sensory experience. She just like, it's just all encompassing, and there's this curiosity and playfulness with water that sits for her alongside her need for it, which I thought was really fascinating to see through her eyes. And she's just this little toddler. But I think deep down, as adults, if we allow it to, that playfulness is probably still there. Our curiosity with it are kind of like, yeah, it's such a powerful what word is compound? No, chemical? No, I don't know what it is.
Yeah,
I'm not the
probably
scientist. But in terms of my life as a boater, which I also reflected on, I think the words that came up for me was life supporting, because obviously in the literal sense of survival and basic needs, but in my boating life, it was kind of in the fullest sense, and water was about joy and exploration and movement and opportunity, and going back to my toddler comment, definitely curiosity. But I do feel off the back of these questions like this deep urge to be near it again. And so I'm going to seek it out at the next opportunity.
That's what, yeah. I think the more you are in water, you are kind of addicted to it. In the
Definitely.
greatest sense, like I think definitely exactly what you said. Like I love that you were thinking about it whilst you're bathing your daughter, because I think that's the feeling that you get when you submerge into water, especially wild water. You feel that curiosity reigniting, but also the dopamine. I think that's quite similar to when you're a kid. Like I think when I get in water, I feel exactly the same as when I was a kid with my sister and we were doing water bombs. I think you do feel a bit daft around water. I mean, obviously safely, but
yeah.
yeah.
Definitely. Yeah, it's really interesting.
And so do you find that being aboard brought you closer to nature then, because you're closer to water and closer to birds and the seasons?
Definitely. I mean, it goes without saying in the countryside, and it's such a sensory thing, like the smell. I was just thinking about like the pollen that you could see and just have in your face when you're cruising, and you're super close to it. And I think I became a little bit more feral as well, and I love that. And it was just much more. I mean, maybe particularly during lockdown. But in London, yeah, like I said, the proximity to, I think the wildlife in London is incredible. And you do, I mean, out in front of our flat, there's just like foxes every night, and they're doing their thing. And but I think like you said, you notice it more because you're just closer to it, like you're quite literally closer to it. And then during lockdown, when everything kind of was quieter, the wildlife was louder. It was just gorgeous. But I mean, I wanted to maybe talk about a slightly crazy story, and you've probably got similar ones from your boating friends. But when I moved onto land, it was forced upon me to an extent, because I had come back from a festival, a Glastonbury festival. I can't remember which year, a couple of years ago, and a moorhen had nested on my bow, and I was like, this is cool. And you can't move a boat, you can't disturb a nest, right? It's illegal, and nor would you want to, because it's poor little things. So I was, observing it, and then I went away again for another weekend, and I let my boat neighbour was keeping me up to date and said, oh, they've hatched and there are three of them, and then he'd text me and be like, oh, one's just died, oh, one's just died, and then so all three of them died, which is super sad, and I was really upset about it. And then when I came back to the boat, there was another nest on my back deck blocking the entrance to my boat, and it was another moorhen on it, and it was actually the same couple. So what happens with moorhens is they often, if they fail and it's still nesting season, they'll go for another go. And so I couldn't get into my boat for, I think, like 5 weeks, and so I
Wow.
was locked out. And so I moved into my partner's, and I was like, oh, there you go. And then
Oh, wow.
gradually moved in. I mean, our relationship was ramping up anyway, and we were talking about having a baby and everything, so it was going to happen, but it
Yeah.
happened sooner than any of us planned.
More hens
So
had your
yeah,
back, like.
yeah, it was really
That's that.
cool, and it's not
Yeah.
really in the book. It's in a footnote because it's late on. It was in my after book life, but it was an incredible experience.
I didn't actually know until I read your book about that you couldn't move them, because I don't think
Mm.
I've experienced it. I think I've
Oh,
seen sometimes online people have like ducks, because I think you mentioned in your book some people like purposely trying to get birds so they can stay in a place, which is really funny and makes a little bit of sense for some of the people I've seen on TikTok now, actually. Because I was just like, oh, this never really. I think in the north, like we're not as congested, so we probably move on
yeah,
more, or I don't know that. But I'm now going to be keeping an eye on the moorhens, maybe a little bit
yeah.
more, because they like to go on my roof and eat all my strawberries and things like that. So now I'm like, oh, they might be trying to evict me, but
Yeah,
I
yeah,
like
yeah.
you were evicted by moorhens essentially.
Yeah, I really was. And someone actually bought me a piece of artwork of a moorhen. That's for my wedding gift. And I was like, thank you.
That's so funny. Just having a little tuxedo. They look like they're wearing tuxedos as well,
Yeah,
actually.
they're absolutely incredible birds. Love them.
And just, is there anything you wish that you'd known prior to getting a boat? I guess I feel like there's a lot of yeses to that question, but
I'm actually going to say very cornerly no, because if I'd have known, the thing is, I probably would have still done it, but I might not have. And it was possibly the best decision I ever made. So yeah, maybe I would like to have saved a bit more money before,
yeah,
because of the things that you can't predict
yeah. I think it's
that cost a lot of
happened
money.
to many boaters, though. I think, yeah. What's that? I can't remember that phrase that they say. Bung on another 1,000.
Oh, yeah.
BOAT. Yeah.
Oh, I've never heard that. Well, I've heard the phrase, but
Yeah.
not the. That's really funny.
Yeah, so sorry. Anyone going for the boats, it's a never-ending repair job, I think. Well,
It
all boats
it
are
is.
sinking, basically.
All boats
Yeah.
are sinking, every single one of them. But I do
Yeah.
think I have a really good friend of mine who was a boater just before me. So her journey was really similar to mine in terms of the length of time on the water, and she did not have this level of disaster. Like she did quite well out of it. And so I think some boats and boaters have less drama.
That's true as well. I've got quite a
Yeah,
drama queen of a boat, I think. It's a
drama
it's a
queen of a boat.
1975 very unique boat, so it's
Oh,
had a lot of yeah, a lot of it's still being fixed up.
yeah.
Kind of like pictures.
Oh,
Yeah. Um, but yeah,
I
so I
bet it's
would
very
really.
high though.
It's very, oh yeah, yeah. Definitely in the winter, we got. I think we did that before we even did anything. We were just,
Yeah.
there's a funny picture of me when we first got the boat, and the electrics went off, and I think for like a month I was just knitting with a head torch on and candles. But you're just cozy. But it's
Yeah,
kind of a
yeah,
funny one. It's
that's
during one of the
brilliant.
lockdowns, so it's new hobby
That's
that
so
I took
funny.
up for probably only that month, to be honest.
Do you know what?
But
I remember someone saying, I think I write this in the book, so sorry if I'm repeating myself, but someone came past me on the towpath when I was moored in Little Venice, and he was cycling quite fast, and he was talking to someone, and he went, I would not want to be on a boat during lockdown. And I was like, could like, whoa. And I think it was right at the beginning, it might be the first weekend of lockdown that he said it. And I was like, why? You know, like, and I totally disagree. I thought it was the best place to be during lockdown, but it was just funny. Yeah, I thought it was a very Hague place to be.
Yeah, it's fun. I think I heard that a lot when we were in there. It was quite a busy spot when we got locked in. I think you probably experienced the same thing. I think you mentioned like it didn't get quite territorial where we were, but there was so many people, like so many people. There was some days where I was like I couldn't get out of my boat, so it did feel a bit whatever. But then no one's around at night, and everyone just walks, and you're just all on your own. If I'd been in there's plenty of other places I don't think I would have liked during lockdown. We're all fortunate that we had somewhere to be, I think, in general. But yeah, let me ask as well, just before I forget, kind of what's next for you? What are you cooking? What are you literally cooking?
I'm writing. So I'm just coming to the end of the Faber Academy writing a novel course, which was a 6-month course, and I'm dedicating the next year, this calendar year, to writing my novel. So that's my next thing.
How are you finding going from memoir to fiction then?
It's very different. It's very different. I think the reason my instinct was, I could have written a follow-up to All Boats Are Sinking, in that I had another 3 years on the water, and actually there was quite a nice tidy way, Hollywood way, I could have brought in a love interest and all sorts, but I was a little overwriting about myself. I was like ready to like think about other people, and so I've really enjoyed creating the character, and I'll say character because there's obviously a protagonist, but it is different and it is hard, but I'm really enjoying it, and I'm excited by it.
Cool. I'm excited to see what comes out of it. I'm sure it'll be good.
Thank you.
You write very well, and you can keep the other one in your back pocket maybe for a rainy day when the film comes out and it needs a sequel.
Exactly.
And is there anyone who has inspired you most creatively that you would suggest their work for aspiring creatives?
I think I'm going to go back to Bryony Kimmings, because she's just really badass, and because my work was in autobiography, of course I was very directly influenced by her. She has a lot of strings to her bows as well. So there was a film out a couple of years ago, a Christmas film with Emma Thompson, and she co-wrote that. I just think I'm a real fangirl of hers. So yeah, look out for her work. She's brilliant.
Oh, definitely. What was her name again?
Bryony Kimmings.
Bryony Kimmings, just in case anyone looks like. I think I know which Christmas film you mean as well. Is it Netflix? No, sorry, it wasn't. It came out on there after.
It's called Last Christmas, I think. That's just come to me.
Yeah. So I think we've just come up to 1:45. So let me just see if anyone else wants to put a question in the chat. Oh, thanks. Sim Taylor says, thank you for talking so frankly about the writer's life as well.
Oh, thanks.
It was a compliment. Thanks for saying that, Sim. And Beth actually put Bryony Kimmings' website in there if anyone needs it. I'll just wait a second. I will say Substack chat didn't work very well last time. So I have a list of people questions that people have sent me prior as well. I think you've seen some of. But I will just keep an eye on my messages, because I said it's not working. People did it on Instagram last time. Anyway. Technology.
Yeah.
There will be a way to contact me. There's so many different ways, unfortunately, to contact us. So I guess someone asked me to ask you what your favourite mooring spot was, which I'm also quite keen to know, if you have one, obviously.
I can't answer that. And I knew, I did try, and there's just so many, and I didn't want to say one and then come off the call and go, oh, but what about that one? But I will say that something that really, really surprised me moving onto land, and has been just the most joyful thing, is that I get these very random, real, short flashbacks of bits of the canal, and they just come into my brain. I think mostly when I'm in bed, and I see a bit of canal, and I'm like, oh, there's that bit, and it's sort of, I can't tell you where they are. I mean, I probably could if I thought about it, but they're just there, and it's just so lovely. So I have this real, yeah, memory of so many different spots, but I couldn't pick one. I mean, no.
I can know
And
I
also,
completely get it. Oh, go on.
after the book ended, my life on ended at that point, I moved the boat back down the Trent, to and then I went down, and then I went along the River Trent and then up the Arawash, to get some more welding done, and then I went down to the Coventry Basin, and then I went down the Oxford Canal, and then I went through the Thames. So I got a
Oh,
whole load of other stuff. I actually really sadly missed the Shroppie, because I really wanted to do that. I think there was a closure, and I would have also gone into the Llangollen at some point, but I didn't, and I really regret that. But yeah, but the Oxford was absolutely stunning and really surprised me how beautiful it was. But yeah, the Maccles. I mean, I haven't got one. I'm sorry, too
it's
hard.
so funny as well though, because you're I know because obviously reading the book what year this is, and
Mm.
that closure. I know exactly where it is, and if you'd have gone up there, that's where we were because we were on the other side of it.
Oh,
So that's what
oh,
we were deciding to go that way and this way and things. It was
yeah.
yeah. I haven't been down the Oxford yet because of floodings the other year. I think it was there's been some
Oh,
bad floods
yeah,
last couple of
really bad.
years.
I would
Um,
recommend it at some point. It's beautiful.
is it quite chocolate boxy? Is it?
It is chocolate boxy. It's really winding. It's very green. There's lots of fields. Yeah, it's beautiful, and also like quite convenient if you want to. Like the train line's often very accessible for popping to
Yeah.
other places. Yeah, and
But I
wild
think
swimming.
oh, wild swimming as well. Okay, yeah.
Yeah, lots of wild swimming. It's beautiful, and actually the community, the boating community on there is extremely strong. Like you see the same faces back and forth, and they're all super friendly. It's lovely.
That's really cool. I think as well when you were just saying that about the strong sense, what I found from being on the water is that you kind of have this new inbuilt map. Because actually in your book
Mm.
you mentioned a spot, I think in Congleton, and I knew exactly where it was because
That
me and
bit's
my friend had
beautiful.
spent my birthday there, and I was like, I know exactly
Oh,
where it was because you
yeah.
said the place, and I was like, is she going to say this? And then the rest of the sentence said it, and I was like, it know exactly what she means. And it's a strange thing that I think happens as well with boaters because you'll go halfway across country and someone will go, the place with the tree on the Oxford. And you'll go, oh yeah. But if you go,
Yeah,
do you know Bridge 59? You'll go, I don't, I'm not sure unless there's something else, but there's some
yeah,
strange thing that you say, like the name of the place plus like kind of there was a weird brick there. You go, yes, like
yeah.
I know
It's weird,
exactly what
isn't
you
it?
mean. Yeah.
But if you ask me anything about motorways, or even London, I'm rubbish in London. If I get out at a tube
Yeah.
station, I'm like, where am I? I've been here for years and years. Yeah, it's funny that, isn't it?
Yeah, it must be that connection with nature. So, and where
Definitely.
is your favorite water place now, if you have one?
Yeah, so I my partner is Welsh, and he has a cottage in Snowdonia, so at the base of Snowdon, an old, beautiful little terrace cottage. And so we're really fortunate. We go there like 4 or 5 times a year. And when I was pregnant, and he was working from there, I had a lot of time, and I was very reflective and very in a very pregnant headspace. And I'd go for walks around the back of the house where they had this nant, and in Wales, a nant means stream and brook, and it runs around the back of the house, and it's just stunningly beautiful at the base of Snowdon. And I'd sort of sit there and meditate, or just look at the water, or listen to it. And and that's somewhere I go to again and again and again, and that's just somewhere that I have a real spiritual connection with now. And obviously Snowdonia, because again, that's one of those places I was so embarrassed when I went there first, going, why on earth have I not been here before? It's just like otherworldly spectacular. And obviously the weather and the lakes and the waters there are so changeable that every time we go, I feel like that bit of brook is bigger, smaller, louder, quieter, different wildlife. You know, it's just beautiful. So yeah, that's my spot at the moment.
Oh, beautiful! I love that. Love that you just described it, kind of having new faces at different times.
Yeah, it's so lovely.
Okay, and then this other question I had asked, which is, where did you physically write the book? I think you cover this a little bit in the book, and I think you've mentioned it now. But I think when the question was asked, it was kind of like, where, maybe on your boat, in pubs.
Yeah. I would say the first draft was predominantly on argy-bargy. I don't recall having that many, you know, I think public spaces for me are quite loud when I'm writing. I did do some writing in pubs and cafes and whatnot, but mostly it was on the boat. And I just loved that. And when I did eventually get a job after lockdown, it was quite an intense, it was an extremely intense job, really, really demanding. And I was like halfway through this draft. So I would get up in the mornings at sometimes as early as 4 a.m. and do like an hour in the dark on my boat each day, and kept the momentum of the writing up by doing that. So yeah, I pretty much read it all on argy-bargy, and I feel quite strongly now that we've just got this camper van, that this novel is going to be written on a bloody van. I really want it to be written on there. Yeah, there's just something about that cocoon creative environment that just I found the most conducive to, you know, to writing.
That's really interesting. So it's kind of, it resets maybe into the same story when you go back into the same space.
Definitely, yeah, I think it does. Yeah, you have your little rituals, I think. You know, certainly when I edited, I had to be a bit more. I couldn't, and I guess life was moving in other directions. I was definitely editing in other spaces, but the first draft was just me on my boat.
Yeah, and then I've just seen there's a question from Beth, and she says, "Do you feel safe walking along the towpaths, especially in London? And has living on a canal altered your feelings about this? I only ask because I have found towpaths quite spooky at night in the past."
I remember when something happened in the headlines in that lockdown year. So the murder of Sarah Everard. Sorry, it's quite heavy, but it is. I think it was a moment that really we all shifted our attention onto public safety. And I was on the boat on my own at that time, and I realised that I had done a load of things to make me feel safer without really consciously realizing it. Like I used to turn my lights on at one end of the boat and not at the other, where the curtains would show me moving across, you know, things like that were really specific. And I can't remember, there was a list of like 2 or 3 different things that I realized. I was like, oh my God, I do that. I really do notice this stuff. But it was unconscious. And I think there's a lot about safety generally. And there were some hairy moments on the boat, people jumping on the boat, and but I don't think I did. But like I said, I think I was unconsciously aware of it, and not particularly more in London. I think in London you have more people around you. It's very, very dense. So if anything did kick off, you've got people right nearby. There's a lot of fear mongering goes on, particularly online, about safety in London. Things get nicked. But personal safety, I either put things in place or I didn't really think about it. But maybe that's also because I'm a bit reckless as a person.
I think maybe as well, when there's more boats on the canal, you feel safer. So in London, I don't know I don't know what it's like because I've never been there. I'm guessing there's more boats. I've been in places like I've been on the Kennet and Avon at my friend's boat, and it's wild because there's just families for miles a stretch, on boats. So, like, it makes you feel quite safe because actually all their lights are on and their kids' bikes are over the towpath, and it's kind of like the more boaters are around, I think I feel safer, even though obviously anyone could be the danger. But like you said, the more people actually. I think in the UK we have this thing where it's like we think, oh, you don't go out at night, and then nobody goes out at night, and then you're in these alone spaces, and that's what makes you feel kind of creeped out. But actually, when there's a lot of people, it's either you're alone, or if there's lots and lots of people, that can really make you feel safe as well.
Yeah,
if it makes sense. One guy behind you for a long time who's probably just tired on his way on a shift will absolutely freak you out. But lots of people milling about.
Yeah, I think the thing that was an annoyance in London was like antisocial stuff. Kids jumping on the boat or people nicking. I had things nicked off my roof and stuff like that. So it's just silly things rather than, oh my God, did I talk about this in the book? I can't remember. Was it after? The fireworks? Did I talk about that in the book?
I don't think that's in the book.
Sorry. After the book, I was in Manchester city centre. Oh my goodness, this is wild. I was in Manchester city centre. The bit before you go on the Bridgewater, it's like this. There are lots of permanent that's it. Beautiful. Like really industrial.
It's Castlefield.
And they were filming. That's it. I was moored there. And they were filming Peaky Blinders, and actually, claim to fame, Argy Bargy's in Peaky Blinders.
Oh, really?
Which is just stupid because it was this bright blue, like 1980s boat. You can see it in the back of one of the shots.
I'm going to look for it now.
I'll try and locate the episode. But so they were filming it, and I was on the boat, and it is quite densely populated, but it's not a community I know. I was passing through, but obviously it was super exciting that Cillian Murphy was just across the way, doing like dropping bombs in the water and stuff. It was super cool. And so I was like watching this stuff happen, and then overnight, and a lot of it involved gunshots, so it was a little bit like jumpy. It was kind of exciting and cool, but there was gunshots. And I woke up in the middle of the night, and I can only describe this as like, it sounded like a bomb had gone off next to my head on the boat. So I've got steel boat, right, and my bed's high, so I'm like inches from the top. And I jumped to the floor, like instinctively, and off the side of the bed. I had a nosebleed because I was obviously so freaked out, and like it was just a shock of it. My heart was racing. Anyway, I managed to sort of calm myself down, and I think I sort of saw a security guard out the window because of the filming, and he like shone his torch, and I had this like brief feeling of, okay, I might be okay. It was just really bizarre. I went to sleep and woke up, like eventually went to sleep, woke up in the morning and like came out of my boat, and there was the shell of this, like that big, of a firework next to my bed, outside. So some, kid had come up and lit a firework thing while I was asleep, like a meter from my bed, while Peaky Blinders was being filmed. It was just so weird, but it was terrifying. I've never been so scared in my life.
Yeah, I mean, it's definitely more people who are messing with your boat who think they've got no concept of how small it is inside.
So even when you are.
Yeah, like if they see vandalism and people smash boat windows, and obviously it's terrifying because if you have kids, their beds might be near the windows, or dogs, to be honest, they're going to be affected by that. But I think they really just don't think anyone's in it. I think that's the truth of it. Like, you have to kind of somehow make yourself known. I don't know. You need alarms and like, bugger off in the middle of the night.
And also, this is awful, and I shouldn't say it, and maybe this will be cathartic, but when I was a teenager, we used to boat hop in Ipswich Marina, and we were, 14 or something, jumping on people's boats, and I look back at that, and I'm like, that is horrendous. And I remember someone coming out, and I was going, running away, but maybe I deserved the fireworks after all.
It was latent revenge. Beth just said, do they not take on board that the boat is your home. And I'd say I don't think it computes with people. I think that they don't necessarily mean harm. I think that people think that people go on boats for holidays and that they're there.
Yeah.
And it was just funny because you could still be on a holiday on the boat, but they just don't put it together in their mind. I've heard people say it like, that no one's in our boat when we're in it and sort of things. Someone climbed on our boat to get cherries once. And obviously she didn't figure out that the boat was going to move. So it was a bit of a comical moment. But also I was like, what the hell's happening? Because the boat
to climb over and find a tree that had
the tree was like above the thing. So she tried to climb on it very badly, actually. I think she probably injured herself. But yeah, I remember being like, oh, you wouldn't think, it's just not thought that anyone's in there. But also she didn't think about the fact that you're in water was kind of sweet justice, I think, at the time, but a bit funny.
Please.
Yeah, she was only after cherries, so she's all right. And then, sorry, Recycle has put a question in, and it says, do you see yourself returning to the waterways? Would you want your children to experience boat life?
I mean, never say never. We're not as a family wedded to anything, as I said. When I met my current partner, he had just bought a flat on land. He wasn't a boater before. He just bought a flat in the UK. He'd come from being abroad. And like, we had the conversation, do we live on a boat? Do we, and start a family on land or boat? And like, to ask my lifestyle to change to his was much easier, I think, than me to ask him to become a boater. And it was a conversation, but I do think it was the right decision to have lost that one. But he loved it. Like he enjoyed loads of cruises with us. On the boat with me, and we do, like I said, we just got the camper van and adventures are afoot. But whether I go back to live on the land with my family, I don't know.
But would you ever go on a holiday, maybe?
Yeah, all over that. We already eyed some up.
Yeah. That's why you're talking to me today. Where's your boat? Mind in Jen. Just a call out for anyone watching if you want a lovely rider to come and stay in your boat for free. Claim to fame. And then I'm realising it's just got up to an hour, so I think we could chat away forever, to be honest, Anna. I'll just ask you kind of our last question, which is, what is one way you would recommend for anyone wanting to go and make a personal connection with water? How would they do it?
I mean, I think we touched on this earlier about the sort of, wherever you are in the UK, it's not that far and the train lines often run alongside the waterways to get yourself to the inland waterways. And I think if you're able to go for an enormous walk along the incredible towpaths or riverbanks, or just to sit and, find a spot, sit and watch and listen and read. And, I think one thing that I noticed when I was on the waterways, I'm sure you have seen too, is that people love to sit and watch at the locks and watch that happen, because it's such an interesting thing, and you hear the rush of the water as well, and it's very sensual and interesting. Just get down to a towpath. And actually, I know we need to finish. I read an article recently about a thing called dusking. Have you heard of that?
Is it like to do with dusk? Is it then, or?
It's another Scandinavian thing. I think it might be Swedish. About this kind of mindfulness practice that they do in these brilliant countries where they know how to look after themselves. But you sit and find a spot in nature or at your window, and you focus in on a tree or a bit of land or whatever, and you just watch it as dusk closes in. And so you get that real, the nature slows down, the sounds slow down. And we did it the other night, me and my daughter, and obviously she can sit still for a few minutes only, but it was just gorgeous. And something like that on the waterways, just sit still and watch a little spot. Oof, I want to go and do it now.
Amazing. Dusking. I didn't know that was a verb, so I love that. I love that you just told me a verb for that. I think I do. I think that's my most favorite thing about the canal, I go out and I watch. I like birds. Like that's come about from having the boat, and that is in winter. So if you're someone who likes birds and you wonder where they go in winter, they do call as dusk comes. So one of the things you can do is go out near water, and that will be how you can hear birds, because I think people think, you know, the summer's over and there's no bird song to be had. But yeah, so I often find a bench and just sit there, and then I'm like, oh, now it's dark. And I've probably walked miles and can't remember where I've been, but it's quite fun.
That.
Yeah, but
and then
I love
of course
that.
the bats come out.
Yes, the bats. I love the bats. Yeah, bats on the canals could be a whole other book, or a fiction book maybe. That would be. Putting ideas out there now.
Yeah.
But yeah, thank you so much for that. So dusking and get down to the towpath and have a gongoozle, which is the watching people on the boats. Although you can always pitch in. I always want to say to people, because sometimes they sit and watch and you're like, no, strong teenage people, come and help me.
As long as you are welcoming of help and you're not just being asked because you're a woman.
Yeah. No, only we got saved once by like 3 my boyfriend remember this. We were in Manchester and one of the locks is broken. So you have the windlass, it's quite dangerous. And it was broken because it was going to spin back off. I didn't realise until I was there, and I couldn't really move, and he was getting thrashed around because he was in it. But there was just like 3 really chill kind of teen lads being like, could we? And I was like, yeah, do you want to help? But I think they were like really made up. We were always like, no, like we were actually really in trouble in that.
At least they weren't standing and laughing.
Yeah, I think they really enjoyed it. They were like, oh, someone's actually let us like play with their boat. But yeah, sorry. But thank you so much for coming on the Water Book Club. It's been a pleasure.
It's been so lovely.
This is Hannah's book, by the way. It's really good. It's a funny book. I think I want to. Yeah, you're very humorous. It's a nice light read. It's easy because she puts it in small chapters. So it's advertised that it's the new way to write for neurodiverse or anyone. Because you can just do little slips. And I love to see what you're going to do next as well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, it's been amazing. It's been really thought-provoking and gorgeous.
Yeah. Okay. And so just say goodbye to everyone and bye. Thanks for coming.
Bye.